I'm Mickey from Roller Skate Revival, and today's project is we are going to take my penny trucks and my Sunlite plates, and we are going to grind down the Kingpin a little bit so that, well, we're not going to grind it down actually, that's the secret. We are going to shorten the Kingpin so that I can grind.
You ground the skates and I'll ground the tools. Let's go rolling around like a couple of fools. Don't care if we're old, let's start something new. So we go rolling around, me and you.
I have a really common setup, which is Sunlite plates with penny trucks. Sunlites are super cheap and they are really light and strong. They have a lifetime guarantee against breakage, so I think they're a really good light park plate. And I like them because they are compatible with the pennies really easy. You don't have to modify anything. And the reason why I love using penny trucks for white trucks is because they are really generic, actually. I mean, they're brand name penny, but for example, the pivot cups, I bought 50 of them on eBay for $4 from China. The right size is 12 by 10 millimeters, by the way, if you're going to do the same thing. And so it's really easy to just buy a big bag and once every couple of weeks trade them out. If somebody buys penny trucks and they're like, oh no, my old pivot cups don't fit, I can just give them, I don't care, because it costs 4 euros for 50, so you know, it's like candy, pass them out, throw them in the streets, who cares? And also I have generic cushions, so it's just, I think they're really easy, so I like pennies a lot. The problem is I would like to learn to grind, and the Kingpin is just barely too long. So it's a little bit too long, and so I can't actually grind because it's stopping me. Standard advice is to cut it down using either an angle grinder, or I heard you can use a Dremel tool, which surprised me because I thought, I actually feel like a terrible person because I told my friend I couldn't cut down her Kingpin because I didn't think my Dremel was strong enough. But somebody told me recently that it is possible. It just takes a while, but I don't want to do that because I don't like using the Dremel to cut, you know, I mean, I use the Dremel to cut mounting bolts a lot if they're too long, but I don't enjoy doing that because sparks fly and I usually break the cutting wheel 3 times and then it flies, and I just don't like to do that. So what I'm going to try is to take off the plate, take out the Kingpin, measure it, and then buy the exact same bolt but just a tiny bit shorter. Cool. So I went online to the Skate Log forum, which is a great place to find very specific information. There's a lot of very knowledgeable people there. And I learned that the Sunlite Kingpin is a 3/8 inch by 16 UNC hex bolt. So I ordered a couple of those from a hardware store, but I ordered them in different lengths. By my measurements, the Sunlite is about 56, 57 millimeters. So I ordered some shorter ones at about 50 millimeters and 45 just to see what the lower limit is. It's quite a bit of difference among the three. But while I was waiting for those to come in the mail, Baz from Quads Takeover London, who is also the guy that imports the Fowls Flake sliders that I use, these come from Indonesia, but he imports them into Europe, he suggested that I just take the Sunlite Kingpin and flip it around. And I thought that was a really great idea. So I did that. And when I was paying attention to my skates, I noticed that the cushion that I use, I don't know if you can see, but it's not really at the right angle. It should be more straight, and it's kind of like that. It's not sitting in properly because my assembly is a little bit too tall right now, probably because of the addition of my slide blocks. And so a lot of times when people do that, and they know that sometimes people can't screw in their assembly anymore, and so there's 2 solutions to this. You can either get roller bones cushions, they're a little bit shorter, or you can also cut down your cushion with a cutting wheel. And I didn't do any of those things probably because the Sunlite Kingpin is so long that I didn't even notice that it was it made my whole assembly a little bit too long. I only noticed it now. And I don't know if this is, so I have heard some people say that trucks fall out. I don't know, I don't remember if that's with which truck and plate assembly, but sometimes people will say that if the trucks don't fit properly, they'll fall out, which of course I don't want to happen. So even though I have been skating on this all year and nothing bad happened, now that I noticed it, I don't want to have such a long, I want to correct my truck geometry. So just to kind of put this problem on a shelf and move on, I ended up doing I put 2 conical ones together so they would be shorter. And that did solve the problem. I don't know if you can see, but the truck is sitting in a lot better than it was before. But I noticed that I had to screw in the Sunlite Kingpin so much before the truck stopped being all floppy that now it's too long on the inside, so that would be cutting into my boot. This idea of flipping the Kingpin did put me more on the right path, because as you can see, there's a lot of space. And so now I could grind, it's just that either it has incorrect plate geometry with too big of a cushion, or it stabs into my boot. So this is the right idea, I think I just need to go a little bit further with this. The 45mm is way too short. I can't do anything with this. In either direction, it doesn't fit. The 50mm though just barely fits. I feel like I have no extra space whatsoever, like not even 1mm, but if you wanted to have it in the way that you're accustomed to by putting it in this way, 50mm would fit. And if that feels overwhelming, like, oh God, what if I go to the hardware store and get the wrong size? Guess what? I have really good news for you. I happen to have a set of Chaya Sharis hanging out for a different project, and so I took out the Kingpins, and I noticed that the Chaya Shari Kingpin is 52mm. So that's a little bit too long to put it in this way, like what you might be accustomed to, but if you do it in this direction, then you actually get more space, even though it's a little bit longer than the 50mm I got from the hardware store. The Chaya Shari head is actually a little bit smaller than the head that I got from the hardware store. So it actually, even though it's a little bit longer, it gives way more clearance. So you still, if you do it this way, like Baz suggested, you have plenty of space to grind, and also that it's not so long that it's going to be stabbing your boot. So I think that's actually the easiest solution, is go to your local skate shop, get the Chaya Shari Kingpin, and then replace the Sunlite Kingpins with the Chaya Shari Kingpins and put them in this direction, and then you're done. Well, put your skate back on, put it back on your boot, and then you're done. Ideally, you would have done this before you mounted your boots to your plates, but we're not, I didn't do it either because I wasn't thinking about it. The only thing I would mention is if you're going to do it in this direction, you might want to consider super gluing the nut in place. Anytime you change your cushions, your pivot cup, or your slide blocks, you're going to need to take the entire assembly out. And then if your boot is here, then you run the risk of the lock nut coming out of place, and then it's like you're playing that, that old game with like a cup, like a cup and a stick and a ball and a string, and you're like trying to get it in place. So I would just lightly super glue this in place so that every time you take it out, it's going to stay where you want it to stay. So that is the no power tool solution to making your painting trucks and Sunlite plates grindable. I hope you found it useful.
They're so slow and lazy.
You ground the skin